This here is Portra 400, and this here is Portra 400 black and white. Now you may not have heard of Portra 400 black and white before, so what makes this film special? It's what they call a chromogenic film. Like Ilford XB2 or Fujifilm 400CN or Kodak 400CN. These are all black and white films that develop in C41 chemistry. These days, only one of those film stocks still exists. That is Ilford XB2, which you can pick up from your local lab. I've only ever shot that film once, which was on a Lomo 360 spinner, which created 360-degree panoramic photos. Now, one of the advantages to a chromogenic film over a black and white standard developed film is the fact that you can go ahead and travel to many countries where color film processing will be the easier method to find, and you'll just be able to take it into the lab, and if you happen to come across a lab that does fast development, you can get your black and white photos back very quickly. Now, I bought black and white Portra 400 in two variations. Now, the first batch here I got in 120 rolls. Now, for supposedly frozen film, I'm not too sure what the hell happened here, but they were not kept in the best condition in my opinion. The very first set of photos that I got developed had poor definition in the low end for 400 ISO film. And at the same time that I was taking these photos, I had taken some T-Max photos that were also expired around the same age. There was a lot of detail missing in the photos, especially in the low end, and there wasn't really much that I could do to Photoshop them into a more usable image. There was this white haze throughout the set of images. Now, I suspect that whilst it was traveling out of Germany, if it had indeed been frozen, that what I was seeing was a base fog. And that could have been from the fact that I often find when I get stuff sent out of Germany, it looks like it's gone through an X-ray machine a fair amount of the time. So what I did is I went ahead and shot at 200 ISO on my next set of photos, and I got much more usable images. That being said, the images are still quite grainy, which is kind of concerning, considering the fact that if you actually read up on chromogenic films, they are supposed to have inherently less contrast and less grain. However, I will say that both batches of this film stock that I have shot have quite a fair amount of grain, considering, both in medium format and the 35mm. Now, in regards to the 35mm that I've got here, I've only shot one of the 3 rolls so far. That roll I managed to actually find on Trade Me, which is the local eBay for my country, and funny enough, the seller was actually based in my old hometown. They had said that they had stored the film in a cupboard, so the 10-year rule definitely applied when trying to make sure that this film stock exposed correctly and account for any base fogging / lack of sensitivity. That being said, I counted 20 years because this film stock was about 20 years old, and lo and behold, I actually found that it came out pretty alright. In fact, I think I could have possibly even shot it at 200 ISO and it would have been fine. But that being said, I shot it at 100 ISO and the grain is still quite strong. Now, I'm not going to get into the technical specifications, but I will link the datasheet in the description tab below. But you can see these graphs here that showed how this film used to behave. Due to the nature of chromogenic films, they inherently have less contrast. And in my experience with this film stock, it has less sharpness. I've noticed that overall, the photos that I have taken have less finer detail. So if I zoom in, like this photo that I took of this pair, and there are what I think was a couple, and they both had a dog each. Other photos, even 35mm, I can go and zoom in quite a bit more and see some detail, and like, yes, I can. But this was shot on my 6x6, and it was shot around, you know, like f22, f16, and I would have expected to see more detail when I zoom in. I made sure to scan the film at high settings, but the lack of information that I'm seeing is a bit disappointing. Now compare this to this. I thought at first that this film stock here was the predecessor, not the successor to Portra 400 black and white. However, upon some research, I found out that this one was actually the earlier rendition. And what I also found out is that technology inside this is not to the same standard or quality that 400CN would have. And that's my experience. I've shot some photos on 400CN and they looked fantastic with huge amounts of detail. Again, 6x7, not too much from 6x6 in terms of resolution, a little bit of an increase, but these photos that I took back in 2023 have far greater detail. So should you go ahead and buy this film stock? The answer is no, not really. If you can buy it for really cheap and you trust the seller, sure, go ahead. However, that being said, if you're getting it from inside the EU and shipping it outside, I would be very cautious by that. I myself have had a lot of bad experiences with that, so just fair warning. But there is a benefit to shooting chromogenic films. So if you are traveling and you want to shoot black and white photos, but let's say you're going to Japan, and from my experience, getting film developed in Japan, especially when you are traveling, not when you are living there, and there is a bloody difference, I would stress that you want to be able to get your film developed quickly. And I know of one lab in Osaka that does a 2-hour turnaround on color chemistry film. So if you have XP2, they can go ahead and develop it, and within 2 hours you've got your film sent to you. They even give you a little CD and you can just go about your day. So if you're wanting to get your photos developed quickly and not have them go through airport x-ray machines, color chemistry chromogenic films are probably the way to go. Okay, so the last question you probably have is this film stock here anything equivalent to this film stock here? Are they like similar? Because Portra 400 is considered the GOAT. It's got a look to it that is undeniable. And in my experience, the answer again is no. Now, maybe back in the day they were similar. I don't have the best controlled version of this film, but in my experience, no, the level of detail, the sharpness and the contrast that Portra 400 has, which is wildly superior than most other film stocks, is definitely superior in this case. Take for example this photo that I shot on Portra 400. Now, I guessed the exposure on this. I didn't have time to go ahead and take it, and it came out perfectly. In fact, it's still one of my favorite film photos that I've ever taken. I don't think I have a photo on Portra 400 black and white that has anywhere the qualities that this shot has. Now, this isn't so much a thing about, oh, a perfect shot. This is just more the fact that the film stock makes the shot look good in my opinion. Whereas I just don't think that Portra 400 black and white does the same. So like I said before, I have 20 rolls of this. Now, I've shot 5 and I have 2 left. Well, should I say 3 left, because this one here I am going to use. Having a C41 film available is really good when I want to make a video where I need a quick turnaround, and my lab's 1 week turnaround time for black and white film does not fit my video schedule. So I have an upcoming video where I'm going to be shooting all my Mamiya's in May, which will drop the first weekend of June. So therefore I need a quick turnaround time, and that's the brilliance with this film stock. I can just go ahead and do a quick turnaround time because all I need to do is drop it off to the lab, and then about a few hours later they'll have it cut and ready for me. And then all I need to do is go ahead and scan it. That's it. And then, well, I mean, obviously edit it and just everything else, but it's a quicker turnaround time for me, and I'm not wasting days. Now, I didn't do a horrific amount of research for this video, but as you can see right here, this was the initial Portra family line. You had Portra 100T, which I've done a video for recently, your 160 VC, which I have shot, I've just never done a video for, You've also got your 400 VC and NC, which I have shot, and there are videos out there about those, and I may do one of those maybe next year. And then you've got your 800. There was no Portra 400 at the time. And then you was your Portra 400 black and white. Now, of those that still exist, you only actually technically have your Portra 800, because later on they would remove 400 VC black and white and NC and just have the Portra 400. And likewise with 160 VC and NC, they would go ahead and just make a Portra 160, and 100T would bite the dust. There is another film stock out there, Portra 400 UC, which I will go over in a future video where I show you every single Portra, but that isn't coming out this year, and most likely will be a video for next year. I won't be doing a one-for-one comparison video, but just basically a much more thorough explainer of the history of each of those films when I come to do that video. Anyways, I hope this video has been informative for you. Until next time.